one of the most dreaded weapons of the combat infantryman. Simple, yet terrifyingly effective. This is 5 things you don't know about mortars.
Are your thermals giving you anything through the smoke over? We got a Rep 2 directly in front of us, sir. Can't see anything really.
The most infamous mortar to see action during the Civil War was the 13-inch Model 1861. Produced solely by the Fort Pitt Foundry in Pennsylvania, this massive weapon weighed just over 17,000 pounds, and it used a 20-pound powder charge to fire a 227-pound spherical shell more than 2.5 miles. Perhaps the most well-known of the Model 1861 mortars was the one used by Union soldiers during siege operations against the city of Petersburg, Virginia in the summer of 1864. Nicknamed the Dictator, it was mounted on a strengthened railroad flat car that allowed it to be moved from one firing position to another. Between July and September, Dictator fired a total of 218 shells into the city of Petersburg. Since the era of the Civil War, the mortar has been a staple of ground combat. This particular model here, an M2 60mm mortar from the Second World War, tells the story of how the technology of the mortar has changed very, very little since the 1860s. The anatomy of the M2 60mm mortar is very straightforward. It's got bipod legs that allow some adjustability, the tube itself that the round goes down, and then a base plate. In addition to that, a sighting system to allow you to put rounds accurately on a target. And with the M2 60mm mortar, this sighting system makes it possible for this weapon to put high explosive rounds on a target out to a maximum range of just over a mile, or accurately out to 600 or 800 yards. During the trench warfare of World War I, mortars with their high, steep firing trajectories were quickly found to be ideally suited to the battlefield. In 1915, the British invented one of the first truly portable mortars, called the Stokes Mortar. With a total weight of just 108 pounds, the weapon broke down into 3 sections for easy transport: a 51-inch long tube that weighed 43 pounds, a base plate that weighed 28 pounds, and a bipod that weighed 37 pounds. With the ability to fire as many as 22 10-pound mortar bombs per minute at a maximum range of around 1,000 yards, the Stokes mortar proved highly effective in combat. In fact, most mortars in use today are direct descendants of the Stokes mortar.
Roger, that second one was pretty fucking righteous. Roger, this is kind of fun, isn't it?
The M2 60mm mortar of World War II fired a variety of different types of shells, starting with high explosive rounds, seen here in the pre-war yellow color and the wartime olive drab finish. That was a little bit more appropriate to combat. It could also fire a smoke round that could be used to either obscure the movement of troops on the battlefield, or it could be used to mark a target. But then finally there was the illumination round. And the illumination round contained a parachute flare, so when it was fired through the mortar, the round bursts. A parachute flare is released that allows you to light up a target. So, with this one weapon, you could fire one of 3 types of shells that could either light up a target, mark a target, or blast the living hell out of a target.
Black 5, this is Lima 3, it's nobody from my tracks, we're way down.
Although we often think of mortars as using a smoothbore tube, there are actually several rifle variants. Now, a rifle barrel produces greater accuracy, but it also requires a tighter fit for the round. This means that the fit between the mortar round and the tube has to be loose enough to allow the round to drop into the bore, yet tight enough for the rifling to engage during firing. In order for this to work, the rounds for rifled mortars are made with an expandable band at the base called an obturating ring, which expands into and engages the rifling under the pressure of the firing charge. To be drop safe and bore safe, the rounds for rifled mortars are designed with fuses that only arm after the round has exited the tube and spun a certain number of times. In the era of stealth bombers and drones, it's amazing to think that the mortar, which has remained virtually unchanged for hundreds of years, is still a highly effective and very dangerous battlefield weapon. During World War II, the Japanese used a lightweight and portable 50mm mortar that earned a unique nickname among US troops. Do you know what it was and how it earned its name? If so, post your answer online or reach out to us through Twitter using hashtag 5thingsyouDon'tKnow.